So this is my Samsung frame TV. I needed a console table for underneath here, and I just couldn't find one I liked. So I decided to design and build one myself. And that's what today's video is all about. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I cheated a little bit, and I used ChatGPT to help me with the design. I basically fed into the app everything I wanted and what was in my head. And I was quite shocked and pleasantly surprised to see the very first rendition that it sent back was perfect. I'm gonna tweak it and do some modifications to it to fit what I have going on here and build it myself. So the first thing is I'm gonna lay it out on the wall with some masking tape. So there's three components to this. One is the top, one is the wedge, and one is the beam. The top is going to be about 7 or 8 inches wide, about 2 inches thick, and solid walnut. This wedge will actually be a wedge shape, so it comes out from the bottom out like this. It's about 1.5 inches thick at the bottom and probably 4 inches thick at top. About 21 inches wide, about 16 or 17 inches high, walnut as well. And it's going to have a hidden feature in it where it actually is hollow inside, and this beam will run all the way through it and attach on the inside. The beam will be made out of cherry, 2-inch thick cherry, 4 foot wide, about 6 or 7 inches high. So this vent right here is basically just to cover a hole that I have in the wall where I went in and I sealed off the ductwork to the upstairs apartment. That way I don't have to drywall it shut and then have to cut it back open later in case I want to open that ductwork. But this wedge is designed to cover that hole. And also the studs are here and here. And this wedge piece will attach right to the studs, which is critical because this half over here cantilevers off of this edge and just hangs out in midair. So the top and this beam are not going to be against the wall. They're going to be out about 1 inch from the wall, giving it a floating look above and on the end. So that is my plan. It's about 49 inches wide. It's about 30 inches off the floor, and it's about 17 inches high. This design is kind of a mid-century modern look with the wedge shape and the cantilever and the walnut and the cherry. So let's go down the basement in the garage where I have all the wood laid out, and I just got to buy one more piece. So starting with the wedge. So I've got my little drawings here. 3 pieces, like I said, top, the wedge, and the beam. I picked up all 3 of these last night. I have enough length to get 3 cuts out of this board. And the width, I have just enough width to get the 21-inch wide. What I don't have enough wood left over for would be the sides. The funny thing is, I had this board cut in half yesterday. And I didn't need to. I really needed the whole board. So I'm going to attempt to go back to the store today and find the other half of this board. I hope they still have it. If they do, I'm going to bring it back, and then I'll show you everything I'm doing. I mean, it was just last night. It was an 8-foot board, and I took half of it because it was raining out. And I didn't want to have the board get wet. Here it is. That is the other half of my board from last night. Okay, now that I am back in the shop here, I'm going to go over the whole build of what I'm going to do. The way this is going to work, I actually have a ring cam up on the ceiling that I use for parking my truck in here, believe it or not. I'm going to use that footage as kind of a time lapse on how I do this. Rather than trying to film with 2 cameras and everything while I'm doing this, I really want to fly through it at my pace with the music on and all that, and I don't want to deal with the cameras to do that. So I'm going to use my ring cam footage, and it's going to be a time lapse. Maybe I'll find some music or something for it, I don't know. But before I do that, I will explain what I'm doing. So this board is going to get cut into 3 sections, and I will probably rip it down the middle so that I can flip each board and then re-glue them back together. I'm going to make the 21-inch wide wedge. This is our front. 16 and a half, say 17 long. 3 of these, I should be able to get 3 of those out of there. It is the next morning. There we go. So this is the front. It'll get sanded down. It's not perfect. Actually, it's pretty dang good for how I did it. I don't have a planer to run it through. But for right now, for what I'm doing, I'm making a wedge-shaped piece of wood, so it's okay. So now what I'm going to do is make the wedge-shaped sides for this, and then I have to do the bottom, and then some sort of cleat, and then sand this all down, notch out the right side, and we'll mount it to the wall. This is a biscuit joiner. Very cool little tool, actually. It's for joining wood together using these little wood footballs like this, little wood. And what happens is this thing actually plunges, and this little tooth right here, this little blade, it's actually a mini saw blade right there. That little saw blade comes out and cuts a half circle notch that this football fits into. You put glue in there, clamp it, let it dry, and it's like one. And this little fence will fold down, and you basically put your wood like this, and you plunge it in. So what am I doing with it? So I have my wedge-shaped piece of walnut here. It's not wedge-shaped yet, but if I spin it around, I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I've drawn out the wedge shape here. I've even started showing the notch where the piece of cherry will sit down in it, the beam, if you will. So when you're looking at it from this side, this is the bottom, this is the top, and this will get cut on an angle later because I want to use this full piece to clamp it down. And the football, or the biscuits, this is where they'll go. 1, 2, 3. I've already cut the angle on the top, so I will probably keep it in just a little bit, and then eventually I'll come back and trim off the top of this as well to match. So today, first thing I want to do is glue the sides down and get them clamped, and then add one piece of walnut right here, which will be the bottom piece, and then I can just start cutting and sanding. So first things first is the biscuit joiner, and you basically pick how many you want. Well, I think 3. 1, 2, 3, and you put a little mark. So there's my 3 marks. 1, 2. Then we do the same thing on this side. And again, I line up my angle to hit the front point here and just determine where that will be. And again, here, 1 there, 1 in the middle. There's a red line right here, as well as on the front edge of this top piece. I'll make sure everything's tight. And the depth is already set for 3/4 inch material. So then all you do is lay it down and you line up your red mark with that. And I like to put my thumb down in here and lift the back up. You just plunge it in. Okay. I'm going to hang it off the side of the table. I'm actually going to turn it upside down and hang it off the edge. This is how this works. You want to line these up right in the middle. Now once they're glued, you can move them a little bit. But you'll be able to pound this down in there. And because we held that fence of the tool on both surfaces, they'll line up exactly where you want. And that is how the sides will go together. So I'm going to get the glue these up, and then I'm going to cut a strip of wood for the bottom, and I'll probably just clamp it all at the same time so this whole thing will set up for the day. And then tomorrow I can take the clamps off and I can start cutting it and then sanding it. So I have cut the notch in the right side for the beam. And it's going to sit right on this U-shaped notch right here. It's going to cantilever out to the right side. Inside the wedge, I'm actually going to place 2 dowel rods right here. They'll be glued into the walnut, and the end of the cherry will have holes to go over those dowel rods. So in theory, this gets bolted to the wall, and then the beam will slide in here, go onto the dowel rods, and these would lock this end in so it can't lift up. It should just hang out there all by itself, and we basically have a perfect bed to place the top. And the top will also have dowel rods in here so it can't slide around. I don't know if the top will want to tip over. You know, that's something I just don't know until I place it on here. Again, it's a Frank Lloyd Wright design. It's a cantilever design, and I'm just trying it out to see if it works, and hopefully it does. Once I sand this, it'll be ready for a finish. I have the walnut wedge all cut to size and shaped, even sanded. I have the notch in it for the beam. When I spin it around, you're going to see I already drilled the 4 holes right here. And that's for the anchors that are going to go in the wall, and then this will just go right onto the anchors. And that's what holds the wedge to the wall. So these are hanger bolts. So how a hanger bolt works, you can buy this special socket or nut driver, whatever you want to call it. It's threaded inside. So it threads onto the machine bolt end of it. And then this part with the wood screw threads screws into the stud. So in the end, only about that much of it will be hanging out. I only want enough to hang out to grab the thickness of this board, plus the nut and washer that goes on here. It can't hang out too far because the beam has to go in here, and I can't hit the beam with the bolts hanging out. So they cannot hang out any further than this. So I bought the hanger bolts and 4 nuts, 4 washers, and I'm going to measure out where the holes are. I'm going to pre-drill, and then I'll drive these 4 bolts in the wall and have it protruding out just enough for the nuts and bolts, and I can hang this on here, and that'll be that. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this again. I want to mark where this is going to be. So I have my level, I have a pen, and I want the top of this to be the bottom of this tape line. That's perfect right there. All right, here we go. Look at that. Back to the garage and the workbench. What I want to do is add a ledger board across the top of this right here. And the reason is, let's just pretend this is the top, that thick walnut top. There's going to be an inch gap behind the top to give it that look that it's floating off the wall. When you put the top on here and you leave an inch, if I do nothing, this is what you're going to see. You can see this big hole down here and a gap here and all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take another piece of 3/4 inch poplar and attach it right in between here, like this. So it'll be straight across, but it'll be 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I have this angled aluminum angle. I'm actually going to cut it just a little short of this. And then this will actually get attached to the back of the walnut top. It'll actually get mortised into it so that when you put your hand down, you will not feel it. It won't be sticking out. So you won't see it for sure. It'd be impossible to see. And holes drilled. And this is the critical part because I kept thinking about how I'm going to keep this top from just flopping off the front. This piece will actually do that. So it'll be screwed to the back of the walnut, I'll have holes drilled here to screw it down. And that will be the only metal fasteners that hold any of this together other than what attaches it to the wall. So that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing is put the board on back here. And because I am doing this after the fact, I can't use biscuits. So I just need a board this long and then a couple of pocket screws on each end and some glue, and we'll attach it, let it set up overnight, and then we'll start working on actually the beam next. So this is a scrap of, was a 1x4, probably now it's 2 inches wide. And I'm not even measuring it at this point. And do that. Okay, the next toy Rob has, I love tools. This is a pocket hole jig. So, the way this works has these little retainers here, and there's a size back here, and it's already set for 3/4 inch. That's the thickness of the board. And you lay it here, and then we're going to clamp it down. And then the drill bit will actually just go right down in this holder, or this channel, and drill that at the exact right angle. And the stop stops the drill bit from going too far out the tip of the wood. And what that does is that will put the small hole for the threads where they need to be and leave a bigger hole for the head, so that this will be countersunk on an angle into the board. You've seen these on furniture. If you ever wondered how they're done, this is how. A pocket hole jig. So we're going to do this first. And they make a clamp that goes in here, and I wish I had that. A couple ways you can do this. Actually, no, I'm just going to hold it because I can, because I've done this many times before. So. This is very cool. You look in there, you can see the holes, but it doesn't come out here. That hole, that tiny hole, is actually right behind the surface. And the reason it doesn't pop out is because we have the depth set just correctly. And if you have the correct screws, they'll actually sit themselves right in here, just like that. And you want to use the correct square drive bit, preferably long, because it's at a low angle. And that's how we're going to do it. Now we're going to glue this, clamp it in place before we screw it. First thing I like to do is get a wet rag handy, because I tend to make a mess with glue. So, and this glue is very runny. It's not a very thick glue. Okay, a bit of glue came out. That means I have some pressure on it. Square drive, they always fit on really nice, unlike a Phillips. Phillips is like the worst. Well, slotted is the worst, which is all they used back in the day. But now we use Phillips, but really a square drive is superior to Phillips. I'm going to start it here. And you just want to hold on to the opposite end. I can take the clamp off because it has screws on it. And now I am actually going to take a break from this, go do some snow removal at work, and then tomorrow or the next day I'm going to start the beam with that big piece of cherry back there. It's the next day here, and for the first time ever I've got 3 cameras going. One is the Sony, one is my phone, and one is a Ring cam that's in the garage. Editing hell, I'm sure. So today is the final step on the wedge. This is the front. And this notch right here will take this giant cherry beam. And that beam will come in all the way and hit the back side of this side piece right here. And my goal is to have it cantilever out away from the wall, giving it the floating look. But I have to anchor it somehow. So it'll sit on here, but the end of it needs to be anchored back here. So the solution to do that is something like this, a dowel pin. 2 actually. So imagine 2 of them back here. And then holes in the end of the beam, and it'll slide into these dowel pins. So how am I going to do that? All right, I bought several things here. By the way, this is what that'll look like. So you have the wedge. The wedge is right here. And the beam slides in the notch and attaches inside the wedge. And then it cantilevers out the right side. So inside the wedge, there's going to be 2 little pegs that the beam slides into. These are 3/8 diameter wooden dowel pins. They look like this. You've seen them in furniture before. This set comes with a brad point drill bit and a collar, a stop collar, and then 2 set pins. And I'll show you how they work. Unfortunately, the brad point that's on here is a very long tip. So when I was looking at that in the store, I knew I wasn't even going to use the bits. But I bought 3 packs of these so that I could get 6 of these. So how does it work? First thing I did, I went in the store and I purchased a set of Forstner bits. Now Forstner bits are nice because they have a very clean cut when you drill into the wood. You can see right here how clean that cut is. Also the tip, or the point, or the brad point on this Forstner bit, which is a 3/8, is a lot shorter than the brad point that's on these. And that's critical because I'm only going into a 3/4 inch board on the side of this. So I don't want this to poke through and come out the other side. However, I want it to be deep enough that I can glue these pegs in and give some support to the beam so it doesn't lift up. So with the Forstner bit, I can probably get it in there almost a 1/2 inch. And it'll be glued in and it'll be super strong. Unfortunately, the stop collar wouldn't fit on the end of the bit where I needed it to. There's always a problem, isn't there? So I had some of these spacers left. These come with the bolts on the TV brackets. You've probably seen them. I save them. They're good to have. I put it on there with the stop collar, adjust it with the Allen wrench, and now I have the exact depth that I need and to not poke out the back. So this is how it works. Okay, it did not drill through. And the cut's very clean, which is nice. 2 of them. So for this camera, imagine this is the beam, and the beam will be sitting about right there. So within the footprint of that beam, I have to have 2 wooden dowels sticking out of the side in here. So I would just simply drill 2 holes, but I can't glue these pegs into those holes just yet. I don't know where those 2 pegs are going to hit the back of the beam. And that's where these come in. They call these locators, I think, something like that. So on the inside of this, I'm going to have 2 holes drilled. And you place these in the hole, like that. They fit right in the hole, nice and tight. Now when I slide the beam in, you make sure it's flush where you want it. And you just give it a little bit of pressure, and it leaves you 2 points. And that's where your dowels are going to be. The beauty of the Forstner bit is it has the point on it, which makes it super easy. It will actually drill that exactly where you want it. The second one. 2 pins. And they line up beautifully. I have them marked, and now I'm going to drill the holes. Alright, so now we can see the holes. I'm going to put these little locator pins in there, And that is how those work. So when I push the beam down in here, and I make sure it's straight this way, and I make sure it's smooth and flat on top of this, so that should make it level. I just give it a good push up against those pins, and it'll give me the location marks of where to drill the next 2 holes on the back of the beam. And back in the garage, here is the walnut top. So I've decided on a total length of 49.5 inches and a total depth of 6 inches. And if I'm taking it from this end, I think I am, but yeah, 49 is going to be somewhere here. So the far left end will have some of this lighter wood. Some will be over here, but at 6 inches deep, I actually won't get any of this on the back. I'm ready to put the finish on all 3 of these. And first thing I have to do is make sure there's no dust at all. So I'm going to use some mineral spirits and a clean rag. I'm just going to wipe it off. That piece is ready. It just needs to dry. Now we have the top. This is where you see how pretty walnut looks. Let's see, we want to do this back edge. Okay, it just has to dry. All right, the finish I'm going to use is called Odie's Oil. I've used it on my picture frames that I just did. It's kind of cool. Looks like a softened Vaseline or something. Anyway, you make sure it's stirred. And I bought the applicator pads, which will last forever because you basically just cut them into little squares and you dip it in there and then you basically rub it into the wood. And it goes a long way. You read the instructions, they tell you it does not take much because your pad will keep giving off some of that oil, I guess, while you're rubbing. You do not have to have this heavy. It goes on very light. So that's what the pads are for. And then you use a rag and you go back and you buff it all off. And you basically wipe it off, you buff it off. You have to wait, I think it's 30 minutes minimum, or until it looks dry. No less than 40 minutes, no longer than 20 hours. And just hold on to the instructions they give you. I got it on Amazon, so it is available. This is probably $65 for this little thing, but it lasts a long time. And it gives you a hand-rubbed oiled finish instead of a polyurethane varnish look. So it's a very nice look for a modern eased edge piece of walnut, for example. So we're going to let all the mineral spirits dry, and then I'm going to get started. So they say make sure you keep it mixed, which I don't see why, because it looks very consistent to me. I don't see any difference in there, but you can see the consistency here. Okay, I'm actually going to use this one. And I want to do the top surface last, so basically you're just rubbing it in until the wood is fully coated. And you may think, oh, the pad's dry. Nope, you squeeze it and there's still more. So that's what they mean when they say a little bit goes a long way. They're not kidding. But as it gets into the pad, you'll see there's plenty. And you don't want it too thick because it makes it harder to buff off, I think is what they say. Okay, there's one side. Now the more fun part. All right, I'm just gonna start, I guess, over here. And if you've used Odie's oil and you think I'm using it wrong, just leave me a comment. Tell me what I could do better, because I've watched the videos and I feel like I'm probably doing it okay. I'm making sure I press it fairly firm so it's getting down in there. And unlike a varnish, you can touch it. It's not going to hurt it because you're going to go back and buff it off anyway. So it's not like you're trying to leave a finished finish. Now you let the this dry for 40 minutes minimum. The The longer the finish sets, the harder it will be to buff off. So you're waiting 30 minutes, check the wood surface. If the surface feels dry, apply more Odie's and repeat until the wood fiber is saturated and will not absorb any more finish. I am going to go right ahead and do the beam. So this is the back side, and I only have to do up to where it's hanging out. That's it. That is the top piece. I'm going to let this sit for 1 hour and I'll come back down, do the finger test, buff it off, install the L bracket and go upstairs and mount this thing, and this project will be finished. I'm actually going to start with the top surface on this one, and I ran my finger and yes, it is ready to go. Yep. You want to flip the rag and make sure you want to clean part of the rag, and it really does work better. Flip it over. This. Wow. All right, so let's see, this goes like this. All right, final step is take it upstairs and mount it. And here goes this piece first. Wow. Wow, 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 that is tough. Oh my Lord. Oh, hard to get the hand in there. You almost have to put things in your fingertips. Wow. Yeah, top's easy. Wow, bottom is gonna be a pain. Thank God for a ratcheting wrench. That thing's on there. Okay. Now I'm going to put the beam in and line up the 2 peg holes over here. There it is. So I have 3 screws left way down in this little space down here. And of course I cannot get a drill down in there correctly. So I have this little tool here. Put the Phillips bit in here. It's a little awkward, but I have to stand up to do this. And I already had those holes pre-screwed. This will go right down in. Very difficult to get back in there. This was a really fun project. I'm so glad I did it. It's beautiful. It's got the walnut down below, the walnut on top, and the cherry over here. And it's out from the wall about 3/4 of an inch. And it looks like it's floating, and I just love it. So thank you for watching. I'm really glad I was able to share this with you. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this as well. And I'll see you on the next one.